Namaste and welcome to Daily News Simplified, the what, why and how of newspaper reading. Now we would be analyzing the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper of 25th of March 2019, and the news that would be covered today is given on the screen, and the timestamp for the same is given in the description and the comment section given below. And so now with this, let us start with the first article. Now we have taken this opinion-based editorial from the editorial page on page 8. Now the focus of this article is quite small, whereby the author is making an argument that the United States is removing India from the Generalized System Preferences Scheme or the GSP scheme. Because India had put up stricter rules with regards to foreign direct investment, on import of medical equipments, and on data localization. And according to the author, these Indian decisions seem to have negatively impacted US companies, whereby the Indian decision on the new policy on foreign direct investment has negatively impacted Walmart, while the Indian rule on data localization has negatively impacted technology companies such as Facebook and others. And similarly, the price cap on medical equipments has also negatively impacted US pharmaceutical companies. Now, therefore, according to the author, this decision of the US to remove India from the GSP scheme is a form of retaliatory measure for the Indian decisions that have negatively impacted US companies. Now, the main conclusion of the author that this retaliatory measure that has been undertaken by the United States can be resolved by India through diplomatic measures. However, the author does not go into depth as to what diplomatic measures can be undertaken by India so as to resolve this issue. However, the author does highlight that if this problem is not resolved, then it would create a lot of problems for Indian traders who have been benefited from the GSP scheme. Whereby, according to the author, the Indian traders who have benefited from the GSP schemes, such as small engineering units, small textile units, apart from others, it would be then difficult for them to compete with the Chinese, the Mexicans, and other exporters of the same product. Now, according to the Government of India, the loss to India from losing the GSP benefits would be around $190 million. And one of the arguments that has been made that this is a very small amount of money within the larger Indo-US trade. Now, the argument that the author is trying to make is that there are a large number of small exporters who make this $190 million for India by exporting goods to the United States under the GSP scheme. And if this GSP benefits is removed for these Indian exporters, then it would become difficult for them to compete with their Mexicans, the Chinese, and other exporters of the same products to the US market. So now this is the main crux of this editorial. Now you should see this article from the perspective of GS Paper 2 within the section International Relations and within the subsection Effect of Policies of Developed Countries on India's Interest, whereby this editorial talks about the effect of the GSP scheme, which is a policy of the United States, and how the decision of the United States of removing India from the GSP scheme is affecting India's interest. Now previously questions have been asked in your mains examination, whereby the first question was asked in GS Paper 3 of 2018. Which had asked how would the recent phenomena of protectionism and currency manipulation in world trade affects macroeconomic stability of India, whereby it talks about the recent phenomena of protectionism that has been undertaken by the United States under the presidentship of Donald Trump, and similarly the currency manipulation in which China engages in. And similarly a question was asked in the mains examination of 2012, which had asked discuss the likely negative impact of the protectionist measures proposed by the United States on India's software industry. And it is within that context that the impact on India from being removed from the GSP scheme of the United States becomes relevant for your mains examination. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this opinion-based editorial from the editorial page on page 9. Now what this article talks about is fake news. Now with regards to this opinion-based editorial, we're going to understand three things about fake news. First, as to what is fake news or how do we define fake news? The second aspect that we're going to understand is what are the concerns with fake news. And the third and the final and the most important aspect with regards to fake news that we're going to understand is how do we tackle fake news. Now we've already discussed about fake news in a much earlier DNS video of last year. And therefore what we're going to do today is again revise all of these three aspects. Now you should see this editorial and the upcoming explanation from the perspective of GS Paper 3 within the section Security and within the subsection Challenges to Internal Security through Communication Networks, Role of Media and Social Networking Sites in Internal Security Challenges, and Basics of Cybersecurity. Now previously there have been questions asked in your mains examination. Now the first question has been asked in GS Paper 3 in 2017. where the question had asked use of internet and social media by non-state actors is a major security concern. Have these been misused in the recent past? Suggest effective guidelines to curb the above threat. While the second question has been asked in GS Paper 3 of 2016, where the question had asked mob violence is emerging as a serious law and order problem in India. By giving suitable example, analyze the causes and consequences of such violence. Whereby in both of these aspects, the misuse of social media and the causes of mob violence generally come down to one main topic, that is fake news. And it is within that context that fake news becomes relevant for your mains examination within GS Paper 3. Now, India currently has close to half a billion internet users, wherein this makes India the second largest online population in the world after China. Now, what has happened? There has been increasing instances of misleading and false online content, and this false online content is being used to incite communal riots, spread false information, and create animosity among various groups in India. Now, there is no specific definition of fake news, and fake news generally exists within the larger context of mis and disinformation, wherein misinformation is false or inaccurate information that has been mistakenly created, while disinformation is false information that is deliberately created to influence public opinion or to spread false information. Now, hopefully, you have understood as to what is simply meant by fake news. Now, let us understand the various concerns with regards to fake news. Now, the first concern with regard to fake news is of law and order, wherein fake news has wider implications for law and order and safety and security of the citizens of India. And apart from this, the spread of fake news also damages the democratic credentials of India, wherein, as you might be aware, there have been recent cases of public lynching, wherein WhatsApp was used to spread misinformation that fueled public anger, and the use of fake news to incite public lynching, mob violence, creates issues of law and order in India and also damages the democratic credentials of India. Now, the second concern with regard to fake news is of shifting responsibility. Now, as you might be aware of the recent public lynching cases, now what happened in this public lynching cases is that the media narrative highlighted the role of WhatsApp, which is a communication network, while this media narrative did not focus on the underlying factors such as of identity politics, past instances of conflict between the groups, or the underlying factors that caused public lynching. And in addition to this, the central government also issued a warning to WhatsApp, wherein the narrative by the media and the central government, rather than shifting the responsibility to communication networks such as WhatsApp for cases of public lynching, the government itself should take steps to combat the use of communication network to spread rumors and misinformation. And accountability should be fixed with the police and the public officials for maintaining law and order, rather than blaming communication networks such as WhatsApp. The third concern with fake news is of opinion engineering, wherein targeted content or tailor made messages are being used on online platforms and messaging applications such as WhatsApp to influence the behavior of voters, where in recent cases opinions have been engineered as a form of political propaganda to incite animosity or conflict between groups. And this is generally seen before elections in India to polarize voting. Now, the fourth concern with regards to fake news is of chaos creation, wherein fake news, fake social media messages have been used to create chaos, such as fake bomb scares at airport, manipulating the stock market, among other instances where fake news has been used to create chaos. Now, the fifth concern with regards to fake news is of the usage of artificial intelligence, wherein the technology advances in machine and deep learning has made it possible for artificial intelligence to generate fake content. And this fake content that has been generated by artificial intelligence becomes hard to distinguish from real information. And there is also a flip side to this, wherein the usage of artificial intelligence to tackle fake news online is currently not up to the mark, wherein artificial intelligence is unable to understand the nuances of human writing, wherein artificial intelligence is unable to distinguish the harmful tone with which a particular comment or a message has been made online. Now, the sixth and the final concern with regards to fake news is who would regulate the fake content, wherein the regulation of fake news, such as removing it from a particular platform, requires decisions, which further raises the concern as to who would make that decision and whether that decision would interfere with the freedom of speech or expression. So now hopefully up till here you've understood the 6 concerns that are there with fake news. Now let us understand the various steps that can be taken to curb fake news. Now the first method that can be used to curb fake news is the usage of artificial intelligence. Wherein previously, as you might be aware of also, that social media giants such as Google have experimented with artificial intelligence, wherein artificial intelligence has been used to curb spam emails, which you also might be aware of, wherein artificial intelligence can now be used to run a content cross check to see whether a news story has been replicated by various newspaper databases. And this can be used to distinguish as to what is fake news and what is actual news. The second aspect is that artificial intelligence can be used to form a database which would have the specific accounts, the sources, the geographical location, and the IP addresses, which are known sources of fake news. Wherein an artificial intelligence detection mechanism can be formed that can highlight a news or a particular comment has been shared by the specific source. Apart from this, artificial intelligence can also be used for fact checking, wherein it could look through similar articles that have appeared on a particular context, wherein artificial intelligence can spot manipulated or doctored images and videos, and thereby alerting the platform or the user of the wrongful use of the images and the videos. The second main step to stopping fake news is of user vigilance, wherein alertness is required on part of the users as actual consumers and targets of the fake information, wherein human judgment and wisdom is critical to solving the spread of fake news. So before you and I share content online, we can exercise our judgment to question the source of that information and whether it is credible or not. Third step that can be taken to curb fake news is of fact checking. Now, various fact checking websites such as Alt News have come up in India, wherein the fact checking organization Boom Live is now available on WhatsApp so as to provide factual accuracy to viral information. Now, the fourth and the final step that can be taken to curb fake news is of crowdsourcing. Now, this crowdsourcing would be similar to the concept of Wikipedia, where a network of volunteers keep the information updated. And so, human networks can be formed to combat fake news, wherein a collective effort of individuals, governments, social media, content platforms, with the additional use of artificial intelligence technology, can be used to combat the influence and the spread of fake news. So now hopefully you have understood as to what is fake news, what are the concerns with fake news, and what are the steps that can be taken to curb fake news. Now based on this discussion, a question for your practice is that the anonymity on social media obscures the ability of security agencies to restrain fake news in India, and rather it strengthens the ability of miscreants to indulge in such conduct. Highlight the steps required to be undertaken so as to counter fake news. Now you would be able to answer this question with the help of the explanation given in this section. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 1. Now what this article talks about is that it has been learned by the government agencies that the terrorist who conducted the Pulwama attack used virtual SIMs. And through the use of this virtual SIMs, the terrorists who conducted the Pulwama attack were in constant touch with the Jaish-e-Mohammed leaders within Pakistan. Now this virtual SIM that was used in the Pulwama attack belonged to a company within the United States. And therefore the Indian government has sent a request to the US government to seek details about the virtual SIMs that were used by the terrorists within the Pulwama attack. Now the information that has been sought by the government of India from the US government is to know the people who activated the SIM, the internet protocol address or the IP address that was used for communication through the virtual SIM, the phone numbers that were dialed through the virtual SIM, and other forms of information. So now hopefully up till here you've understood as to what this article talks about. However, what you need to understand with regards to your upcoming prelims examination is what is a virtual SIM. Now there's some basic facts that you need to understand with regards to what is a virtual SIM. Now virtual SIMs are not physically attached to a mobile and are created online to help with communication. Now one of the main features of a virtual SIM is that they provide internet connectivity, and therefore because of providing internet connectivity, they can provide voice over internet protocol. Now the second point that you need to know is that a virtual SIM provider generates a telephone number and the user then downloads an application of the service provider on their smartphone. Now what generally happens is that let's say if you need a virtual SIM, what you'll do is you'll first find a provider or a company that provides the facilities of a virtual SIM. and download the app of this company on your smartphone. Now, after downloading this app and paying some amount of money, this virtual SIM provider or the virtual SIM company would then provide you with a verification code. Now, this verification code can be linked through your Twitter account, Facebook account, Google account, or any other social media account. And it is after verification that you would be provided with a virtual SIM. And therefore, when you get this virtual SIM, it would be directly downloaded to your phone and would then be providing you with internet connectivity and voice over internet protocol. Now, the third fact about virtual SIM that you need to remember is that it can potentially allow devices to host more than two numbers or lines of services. Now, what is generally seen in current mobile phones that they at maximum allow you to put in the smartphone maximum of 2 to 3 SIM cards. However, one of the potential with virtual SIMs is that it can allow you to host more than two numbers or lines of services. Whereby through virtual SIMs, you can host more than 4, 5 or any number of virtual SIMs that you need to host, and you would not be limited to the physically attached SIM cards which are provided with mobile phones. Now, the fourth point that you need to remember is that one of the most commercial advantage of virtual SIM cards is that it provides an ability for not paying for expensive roaming when you are in another country. And similarly, it also allows that you do not need to buy a local SIM if you're in another country. Now, let's say if you're a resident of India and have gone to the United States. Now, there are two options for you. Either you could take your Jio or your Airtel SIM card and pay for expensive roaming when you're in the United States. Or what you can do is buy a local SIM cards of the United States. However, both of these options are comparatively expensive as compared to a virtual SIM. Now, the fifth and the last point about the virtual SIM that you need to remember is that a virtual SIM still does require a service provider. Now, the number on a virtual SIM can be of a service provider in the United States, UK, or any other country. Now, it is within that context that the number that was provided to the Pulwama terrorists was of a service provider that was located in the United States. And therefore, this is a fact that you need to remember, that virtual SIMs still require a service provider. However, this service provider can be of any country who has the ability to provide communication services in another country. Now, these are the important points that you needed to remember about a virtual SIM with regards to your upcoming prelims examination. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now, we have taken this article from page 7. Now, what this article talks about is that the olive ridley turtles have not yet arrived for the mass nesting that they do every year in the Rushikulia coast in Odisha. Now, olive ridley turtles have been covered several times within Daily News Simplified, whereby they have been covered in the DNS video of 24th of February, in the DNS video of 27th of December, 10th of November, and 14th of October. Now, hopefully you have come across and understood about the olive ridley turtles from any of these Daily News Simplified videos. And therefore, what we're going to do today is ask several questions on the olive ridley and thereby revise about the olive ridley turtles from the perspective of your prelims examination through a question answer format. Now, there are two questions for your practice with regards to olive ridley turtles. And what you need to do is pause this video, solve both of these questions, and wait for 5 seconds for the correct answer. Now, the correct answer to question number 1 is B, 2 and 3. Now, the olive ridley turtles is listed as vulnerable under the IUCN list. However, you should know that it is protected under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, and it is also protected under Appendix 1 of the CITES Convention. Now, with regards to question number 2, the correct answer is C, 1 and 3, whereby they have a unique nesting pattern called Aribada, and the coast of Odisha, and especially the Rushikulia coast, is their largest nesting site. However, with regards to statement number 2, they're also found in the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean. Now, question with regards to olive ridley turtles was asked in the prelims of 2003, whereby the question had asked the seacoast of which one of the following states has become famous as a nesting place for the olive ridley turtles from South America, whereby the correct answer to this question would be C, Odisha. Now, these statements are the main points that you need to remember with regards to the olive ridley turtle. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now, we have taken this article from page 7. Now, what this article talks about is that the coastal areas along the coast of Tamil Nadu are going to be affected due to the rising sea levels. Now, because of the sea level rise due to climate change, there has been an increase in the intrusion of seawater in the coastal areas of Tamil Nadu. And because there has been a severe intrusion of seawater in the coastal areas of Tamil Nadu, it has forced the water table along the coastline to move upwards. Now, because there has been an intrusion of seawater in the coastal areas, what this has done is that it has slowly replaced the fresh water which is at the bottom of the aquifers which are located along the coastline of Tamil Nadu. Now, according to this article, this replacement of fresh water in aquifers with seawater along the coast of Tamil Nadu would rapidly lead to water distress along the cities which are located on the Tamil Nadu coast. Now, what this article has highlighted is that the East Coast Road, which is located in Tamil Nadu, which connects the major cities of Chennai, Malappuram, Puducherry, Rameshwaram, and others, would be facing water distress as the fresh water which is located in aquifers which are in these cities is slowly being replaced by seawater due to the rise in sea level. Now, apart from this, there's one more thing that you needed to understand from this article, whereby this article highlights about the Indian Network for Climate Change Assessment. Now, this Indian Network of Climate Change Assessment is under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. And it is a comprehensive network of more than 125 research institutions which are spread across the countries. And in addition, it also has more than 250 scientists who are working under this Indian Network for Climate Change Assessment. Now, apart from this, an important aspect that you need to know is that this Indian Network for Climate Change Assessment provides an assessment of the impact of climate change on four key sectors of the Indian economy. Now, the four key sectors on which it provides assessment of the impact of climate change are agriculture, water, natural ecosystems and biodiversity, and in health. And apart from this, it provides assessment for four climate sensitive regions of India, which are the Himalayan region, the Western Ghats, the coastal areas, and the Northeast region. Now, these are the main facts that you needed to understand about the Indian Network for Climate Change Assessment. So now hopefully with this you've understood about the main focus of this article and about the Indian Network for Climate Change Assessment. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken the lead editorial from the editorial page on page 8. Now what this editorial talks about is fiscal federalism. Now you should see this article first from the perspective of GS paper 2 within the section Constitution, Polity and Governance, and within the subsection Functions and Responsibilities of the Union and the States and the Issues and Challenges Pertaining to the Federal Structure. And apart from this, you should also see this editorial from the perspective of GS paper 3 within the section Economic Development and within the subsection Indian Economy and Issues Relating to Planning. Now before moving forward in understanding this editorial, I would strongly recommend that you should also read this editorial by C. Rangarajan sir. So now the first aspect that you need to understand with regards to this editorial is what is fiscal federalism. Now there are two main aspects to fiscal federalism. Now the first aspect of fiscal federalism is the assignment of functions to different levels of government. Now when we say different levels of government, it means the central government, the states, and the panchayats and the municipalities. However, with regards to this editorial, C. Rangarajan sir, when he talks about different levels of government, he basically means the state government and the central government. Now this assignment of functions to different levels of government, basically the central government and the state government, is provided under 7th schedule of the Constitution of India, whereby the 7th schedule provides the union, the state and the concurrent list. And this 7th schedule thereby contains the assignment of functions that the central government, the state government have to perform as per the Constitution of India. And the second aspect of fiscal federalism is the assignment of financial powers to different levels of government. Wherein again when we say different levels of government, it means the central and the state government. Now this assignment of financial powers to the central and the state government is provided so as they are able to fulfill the functions and the responsibilities that have been given to them under the 7th schedule. Now the main constitutional body which provides the assignment of financial powers to the central and the state government is the Finance Commission under Article 280 of the Constitution of India. Now the Finance Commission has been provided so as to address the various vertical and the horizontal imbalances with regards to finances in India. Whereby when we say vertical imbalances with regards to finances in India, it basically means that the central government earns much more than the state government. Whereby what is seen is that the central government imposes income tax, corporation tax, and thereby earns much more as compared to the state governments. And therefore, what is seen is that there is an imbalance in the earnings of the central government and thereby the ability of the central government to spend, and the earnings of the state government and their ability to spend on the various responsibilities that have been given to them under the Constitution of India. And similarly, what is also seen is horizontal imbalances with regards to finances within India. Now, you have some states like Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, which earn much more as compared to states like Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, and others. And therefore, what is seen is horizontal imbalances among the states within India. And therefore, with regards to this, the Finance Commission has been formed to address the vertical and the horizontal imbalances in the finances of India. And thereby the main power of the Finance Commission is that it provides vertical devolution of taxes between the central government and the state government, and the horizontal devolution of taxes between the various states. Now, both of these aspects of fiscal federalism are based on the principle of subsidiary. Now, what this principle of subsidiary means, whereby it means the allocation of subjects to various levels of government so as to ensure their efficient performance. Now, what this basically means that subjects are allocated to that level of government where it can be performed in the most efficient manner. Where an example of this is that defense has been allocated to the central government, whereby the central government would be the most efficient so as to defend the territorial integrity and the borders of India. And similarly, public order has been allocated to the state government, whereby it has been assumed that the state governments would be the most efficient so as to provide public order. And it is within that context that financial powers have also been allocated to that level of government where it would ensure the most efficient performance. So within that context, the collection of income tax has been allocated to the central government, and similarly the collection of property tax has been allocated to the state governments. So now hopefully up till you've gotten a brief understanding as to what is fiscal federalism, what is the principle of subsidiary, and what is the main function of Finance Commission with regards to ensuring fiscal federalism within India. Now let us understand the second aspect which has been highlighted by C. Rangarajan sir in the editorial with regards to the transfer of finances from the central to the state governments. Now there are two main modes of transfer of finances from the center to the state, first being the tied grants and the second being the untied grants. Now, when we say the tied grants, it means the grants that have been received by the state for a specific purpose by the central government. Now, an example of this would be centrally sponsored schemes, whereby what is seen is that the central government would provide money to the state government for the implementation of the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, the Manrega program, or any other centrally sponsored scheme. However, the amount of money that has been provided by the central government to the state government under any of these schemes will have to be used for that specified purpose only, whereby the money that has been provided by the central government to the state government for the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan cannot be used for any other purpose. However, when we talk about untied grants, it means the finances that have been received by the state based on the recommendations of the Finance Commission. Now, as you have already understood, the Finance Commission provides horizontal devolution of taxes from the central government to the state governments. And one important difference between tied grants and untied grants is that under tied grants, in which the central government has provided money for specified purposes, it does not provide operational or financial autonomy to the states. While with regards to untied grants, which are based on the recommendations of the Finance Commission, they provide operational freedom and financial autonomy to the states, whereby they are allowed to spend the money on any of the responsibilities that have been given to them under the Constitution of India. Now, it is within this context of tied and untied grants that we need to understand the recent trend, which has been highlighted by C. Rangarajan sir in the editorial. Now, what has recently happened is that the 14th Finance Commission has recently recommended that the devolution of taxes from the centre to the state should be at 42%, whereby this has been increased from the earlier 32%. Now, what this means is that state governments would have 10% more money to spend on the responsibilities that have been listed to them under the Constitution of India, whereby they would not have to rely on the tied grants which has been given by the central government, and they can spend this 42% of tax devolution for any purpose based on their constitutional responsibility. However, another recent trend which has been seen is that this 10% increase in the tax devolution to the states has been made possible through a decrease in the transfer of tied grants by the centre to the state governments. So therefore, what this means is that the amount of money which would then be available to the states would basically be equal to the earlier amount. However, what would largely be seen now is that the state governments would have much more autonomy to a larger amount of money as compared to earlier. Now, according to the author, it is still a good thing with regards to fiscal federalism within India that a higher share of unconditional transfer is being provided to the states. And similarly, the Finance Commission has also ensured that there is no overall increase in the transfers from the central to the state governments. And it is based on this that C. Rangarajan sir has given various suggestions so as to improve the fiscal federalism within India. Now, C. Rangarajan sir has provided 6 suggestions so as to improve fiscal federalism within India. And it would become easier for you to understand these 6 suggestions based on what we have just learned within this section. Now, the first suggestion that has been given by C. Rangarajan sir is that recent improvement in fiscal federalism, which has been undertaken based on the recommendations of the 14th Finance Commission, can be reversed if future government revives the Planning Commission. Now, what used to happen earlier was that the Planning Commission used to allocate finances to the states. However, what happened recently was that the Planning Commission was replaced by the Niti Aayog, and the powers of the Niti Aayog were decreased as compared to the Planning Commission, whereby Niti Aayog now is mainly a think tank and does not have any power with regards to allocation of finances. Now, according to the author, this allocation of finances by the Planning Commission used to interfere with the powers and the functioning of the Finance Commission. And therefore, it is a suggestion of the author that recent improvement in fiscal federalism that has been brought out by the 14th Finance Commission will be reversed if any future government revives the powers of the earlier Planning Commission. Now, the second main suggestion given by C. Rangarajan sir is that the constitution should be amended so as to fix a proportion of the state's share of taxes. Now, what happens is that every Finance Commission fixes a proportion of a state's share of tax, wherein the 14th Finance Commission has recommended at 42%. However, what the author is recommended is that the constitution should be amended so as to fix this proportion. Now, the third suggestion given by C. Rangarajan sir is that surcharges and cess which is collected by the central government should form part of the divisible pool of taxes. Now, what is currently being seen is that the central government imposes a lot of surcharges and cess, and the amount that is collected through these surcharges and cess is only provided to the central government, and it does not form the pool of taxes that can be given by the Finance Commission to the states. And therefore, what the author is recommending is that the surcharges and cess which is collected by the central government should form a divisible pool of taxes and should also be given by the Finance Commission to various state governments. The fourth suggestion given by C. Rangarajan sir is that states should be allowed to impose personal income tax in collaboration with the central government, whereby currently it is the power of the central government to impose personal income tax. Now, the fifth suggestion given by the author is that the income distance criteria, which has been used by the 14th Finance Commission, provides a higher emphasis on reducing inequality among states, and therefore the author has shown agreement with this provision of the 14th Finance Commission to provide the highest emphasis on the income distance. Now, when we say income distance, it means the difference between the actual per capita income of a state from the state which has the highest per capita income. So let's say if Maharashtra has the highest per capita income and Bihar has the lowest per capita income, then in simple terms, their difference would be known as the income distance. And what the 14th Finance Commission has done is that further a state is from the highest per capita income state, the more amount of money shall be transferred to it. So let's say if Bihar has the lowest per capita income as compared to Maharashtra, then it would be given the highest allocation of finances by the Finance Commission. Now, the sixth and the last suggestion given by C. Rangarajan sir is that equalization transfer have limited utility and are considered to be unfair by the wealthier states. Now, what this means is that Maharashtra collects the maximum amount of taxes. So let's say in proportion, it collects 10% of the taxes that is collected by the central government. However, the Maharashtra government only receives 8% of the finances in return from the central government. And this is considered unfair by the wealthier states. Whereby what happens is that let's say if Madhya Pradesh only provides 4% in terms of tax collection to the central government, it may receive a higher amount from the central government as compared to the taxes it has collected itself. And within that context, this concept of equalization transfer, according to the author, have limited utility. So now hopefully you've understood the main focus of this editorial by C. Rangarajan sir. And so now with this, let us move on to the next section. Now there are 2 questions for your practice. And what you need to do is pause this video, solve both of these questions, and wait for 5 seconds for the correct answer. Now, with regards to question number 3, the correct answer is D, neither 1 nor 2. Now currently virtual SIMs do not provide end-to-end encryption. And with regards to statement number 2, virtual SIMs can be utilized in smart mobile phones, tabs and other forms of format. And therefore smart mobile phones are not the only format in which virtual SIMs can be utilized. Now with regards to question number 4, the correct answer is B, 2 only, whereby the question asks which of the statement is incorrect. Whereby statement number 1 is correct, that sea level rise due to climate change does lead to seawater intrusion in the coastal areas. And this seawater intrusion can also fill up freshwater aquifers. And with regards to statement number 2, you have to understand that there is a seawater intrusion along the coastline, and thereby it would increase the water table which is located along the coastline. And therefore the correct answer to question number 4 is B, 2 only. And now with this we come to an end in the analysis of today's newspaper. Now we move on to the question for today.